Hello and welcome to the sewing studio. Today I'm going to show you how to make some of the blocks from the quilt that's behind me, and this is called Log Cabin Love, and it's very kindly been lent to us by Pam and Nicky Lintott. The pattern for this is a downloadable pattern, and you will need the pattern to make this quilt. The pattern says it's good for a confident beginner. However, having made the blocks, I would say probably you would have to be intermediate or a super duper confident beginner. What you do need to do is to be very organised. So I would suggest that you get yourself some masking tape or some sticky notes, because you will need to mark up your blocks as you go. So the quilt measures 68 by 68 and it's made using a jelly roll. And for the heart fabric, you need a metre of contrast. So in this case, it's white, so you would need that. And for your sashing, you need 75 centimetres of light sashing, 75 centimetres of dark sashing, and half a metre for your binding. I made my blocks from fabric that I had, so I cut mine myself into 2.5 inch strips because I wanted mine to be red and cream. But the jelly rolls that would work perfectly for this, so we've got Moda Midnight in the Garden jelly roll, that would work. The Kansas Troubles jelly rolls are also a really good contrast because you need a good contrast of light and dark fabrics. This one's called Dragons and Daffodils, and another Kansas Troubles we've got here is Freedom Road. So any jelly roll that you've got that has got a good contrast of light and darks, if you've got French General, that's perfect. And Lydia's Lace is another one that we've got, which has got a lovely contrast of lights and darks, and I think that would work. And actually Lydia's Lace did remind me of some of the French General jelly rolls. So some of my fabric is French General and some of it is just what I had in my stash, and I cut it, as I say, all into 2.5 inch strips. So let's get started and just pop these out the way. The quilt rather, is made of 16 blocks, and the instructions will tell you how to cut these. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the first log cabin, which is to this size here. So that's 7 pieces. So we take our centre piece, we attach a light, another light, and we work round in a clockwise direction with our lights and darks. And we do this 16 times to make this centre part of the block. So I'm just going over to the machine to start sewing. So I'm going to take my 2.5 inch centre and my 2.5 inch light, and I'm going to sew those two together using a 1/4 inch seam. Now, ordinarily, I would go to the iron and I would set my seam and press this back so that it looks like this. But for the purposes of today, I'm just finger pressing and I'm going to continue to join. So I'm now joining my 4.5 by 2.5 inch log to the side. And again, I'm just going to finger press that back. This isn't ideal at home when I'm doing this. I have a small iron and an ironing mat next to me, so I don't have to keep jumping up and down, and I just do a little bit of pressing as I go. So now I'm taking the dark log, which is 2.5 by 4.5. And again, press that back. And now I'm taking the dark 6.5 by 2.5. Now I am going to go and press this one because I can see I've obviously been a bit overzealous with my cutting, and I can see that I've got a little bit extra there. So I am going to just press it and trim that up because I want to be as accurate as possible. And so now I'm taking a light log. So if I show it to you like this, so we've gone light, 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 and then we've gone dark and dark, and now I'm going to attach a light 6.5. Now a light 8.5. You can see that one's a little bit over there, but I'm going to trim that back in a minute. Just going to give that a good press. So this is our block, and we make this 16 times. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create block 1. So block 1 is the first one that you see in our quilt. And you'll notice in this bottom corner here, it's got the start of the heart. Now this is where I say that you need to be organised because every block is slightly different. So block 1 has got part of the heart in the corner. Your next block will have another part of the heart, but in the opposite corner. So each block is made slightly differently, and there's a number of number 1s, there's a number of number 2s, and a number of number 3s. So you really need to be mindful of being organised. So you can see I've written on here block 1, and with my other blocks they've all got names and numbers. So I'm now going back to this. So we're going to recreate this block. So the next thing we've got is a 2.5-inch square. So you can see I've written on this because this then attaches to our 8.5-inch. And I need to make sure that I'm going to get an angle going this way. Now I'm saying that to you because when I was making up the sample, I realised I'd got my angle going the wrong way. And because it's a dark log, it's got to sit across the bottom there. So I'm just folding across here, and then I'm going to stitch it on the machine, and I'm going to fold it down. So I'll do that first. So you can see that I've stitched here along where I'd folded the fabric, and now I'm going to flip it down to make sure I've got it going the right way. So I'm going to give that a little press. And just checking my pattern again to make sure I'm going the right way, and I am. So the next thing I'm going to do is just trim that back and make sure I cut it in the right place. So 1/4 inch away from the seam line. So you can see here, that's going to go on the bottom of this block. So I'm just going back to the machine to stitch that on. So I'm just going to change back to my 1/4 inch foot. I had to change the foot to do a line down the centre. And back to the iron. and that's our dark. So the next thing we need to do is we need to take a 10.5-inch dark log, and that needs to be stitched to the side here. So that's what I'm going to do next. And then we're going to come around with another light. So that's going to go here like that. Just move that down a little bit so you can see. So that's going to go there like that. And then we're going to create another piece of our heart. So this would be a 10.5-inch light and a 2.5-inch square. So what I'm going to create is that line there. So I'm just going back to the machine to get the other two on and to join my little piece here to my light piece. And then I'll show you how we line that up. So we've got our little piece at the bottom that is going to be part of the heart. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a light log, and this has got a 2.5-inch square. So we need to make sure when we machine this that we are lining these up and they're going the opposite way. So just make sure you push your seams together. So I'm just going to pop a little pin in there, and then I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to sew that. I'm just going to press that. And then the next one that goes across here is this piece. So let me show you that on the close-up, is this piece. So I'm going to join that from the end. But what I need to do is I need to make sure that this bit here lines up. So I'm looking at the way that piece has gone, and I'm actually going to just press this back the other way. So I'm just going to finger press that so that I can get those joined up to a nice even join. And I'm going to machine that down. And again, I'm going to give that a press. So I've sewn this one on, and you can see how I've joined those two seams. So we've got the start of the curve of our heart here. So the next one is to put a 14.5-inch, which is a dark, and that's going to go on this end, and that will be our block complete. And this, as I say, is block 1. So I'm just going over to the machine to join that. And I'm just going to give that a trim. Sorry, I'm just going to give that an iron and a trim, because I've noticed as I've sewn it, again, I've been a bit overzealous with my cutting. And I think because I cut a lot of these strips, I didn't use a jelly roll for this. And I think I've cut some of these strips a little bit bigger than I needed. There we are. So that is our block 1. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how some of these go together so that you end up with the effect that you've got on this quilt. And as I said to you before, you really do need to be very organised because there's pieces that go in between. So I'm now going to attempt with a picture from the pattern to put it together. And this is why this pattern is absolutely brilliant, because it is numbered. So if I just show it to you here, you can see how it's numbered, block 1, 3, 3 and 2. And then we've got pieces L, H, N. So it's like I said, you need to be really organised and label everything. So I'm now going to attempt to put some of these blocks together to show you how the heart gets created. So we need a block 1. So we'll put that one there. And then with some of the blocks that I prepared earlier, we need a block H. And you can see this is how the heart is formed. And then next to that we need a block 3. So this is a block 3. Then we need an L, and the pattern does tell you how to make up all these pieces. And then we need our square of our heart in the middle. And the next one that we've got here is M. And so you can see how the heart is formed. So then the next one down here would be J. So now you can see, with all the blocks laid out, you can see how this heart is formed. And that's why each block is done differently. So you've got the corners of the heart, and then you've got the sashing pieces in between. So now we're going to go over and look at Pam and Nicky's quilt. And we're going to look at how the hearts are placed and how it's been quilted. So you can see our blocks, and then you can see the pieces that have been put on. So you remember I had 2 strips with a half square triangle at the end. So that's one of the sashing pieces, and then you've got your square of your heart, and then you've got the one going the other way. So it's basically 16 blocks with these sashing pieces in between going up and down to create the hearts. And I think this is beautiful. I love the illusion that it gives, and I love the fabric that they've done it in blue and white, and I did mine in red and cream, so you can see the difference that you can create. And how this has been quilted is gorgeous because there's lots of hearts. So this has been long arm quilted, and I've really got quilt envy now. So if I just show you on the back, it's easier to see here. So we've got this lovely little heart, and then it goes off on a swirl. And then we've got another heart here and a swirl. And I think that's really beautiful. It's a lovely example of long arm quilting. And then we've got this lovely dark blue binding going all the way round. It's dark blue with some creamy colour leaves in it. And I think it really finishes the quilt and it looks lovely. So I'd like to say thank you to Pam and Nicky for loaning us this quilt. So I hope I've inspired you to have a go at this tutorial, which is a downloadable pattern. So as always, have fun, and I look forward to seeing you next time here in the sewing studio.